G'day battlers, we're live again to dive into the Vortex Cup meta here with the amazing Go Stadium analyst team. I guess we'll just jump into the intros and if you want to skip to any certain particular section of the video, all the timestamps will be in the progress bar. It might be a bit messy. I think the last one didn't have all of the progress bar things because it went a bit all over the shop. So there'll be lots to discuss here and we probably will be jumping all over the place again. So let's jump into it. I guess we can start off in the order that the Zoom's kind of got it ordered, meaning that Nesabethan is the first one to tell us all about how great he is.
What are we doing the intros before? So I'm one of the Go Stadium Mesh Panellists too. In this case, I put the graphic together. Tangent did the he did the initial layout, and obviously we had a lot of discussion on the server, and then I actually put the images together and stuff. And yeah, I guess that's how I come into this cup.
That'll do nicely. And it's got Twastell next before Tangent. So Twastell.
All right, we're doing Steve's weird alphabet.
Australian alphabet still in effect. This time I didn't even mention alphabetical.
These guys are the brains behind the operation. I'm just the one that chimes in with a few little tweaks or some banter or some Tempest Cup discussion.
Yeah.
That's about it.
That was an important contribution this time.
Yeah.
Twastell was the pretty face of the operation. I am only just noticing now that I'm a bit I seem to be the odd man out as far as the facial hair department is concerned. I don't think I got the memo here. But Tangent 44444.
Yep.
Is it 444? There's three fours. Yeah.
Why are there 3 4s, not 4 4s?
That's a good question.
Explain yourself.
3 was the first amount of 4s that was not taken.
Now tell us about your fishing background.
Plenty of fishing background. Did times in Ontario in the fishing scene. Yeah. Anyways, part of the Go analyst team, Go Stadium meta analyst team. Help out with the meta snapshot. I usually do a lot of the early mock-ups for that, and then send it off to someone who's much better than the paint versions that I made. I also do a lot of I brought the Safe Swap article back this month, first time since Sunrise Cup we've had it, because it's been a little bit beefy to write it, so I wanted to try to make it done in a way which would be sort of easier, and sort of teaming up and doing it as a draft. It actually worked out really nicely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm definitely excited to get into all of that as well. And RughPoo is going to be joining us later on in the stream. They're not around just yet. It might be half past or so before they end up joining in. In the YouTube thing, I might just edit in their intro into this section, and then we'll jump back to the discussion. But I guess we'll jump in. We'll dive into what is the Vortex Cup. I know someone in the last stream mentioned that we didn't actually explain what the Vortex Cup was, which I guess, does someone want to give a quick 30-second what is the Vortex Cup introduction?
It's the Primate, Dragon, and Dark type cup because all the good Charmers are banned.
Yeah, that does make sense.
Yeah. It's the Labyrinth Cup, but with slightly different bans and no restriction on how many of a certain type you can have. It's basically a really similar design to Labyrinth, but without that sort of stipulation.
Yeah, that basically covers the main bases. Yeah. It's a pretty open meta. It's just got a couple of bans thrown in. No fairy types, which means no charmers, which means, as Twastell said, we're going to see dragons, we're going to see dark types, and we're going to see fighters kind of give it a chance to
charmers,
show this stuff.
You're clearly mistaken. There's a plethora of charmers. Yeah. Really great ones, in fact, right, Tangent?
Yeah, it feels really similar to Catacomb Cup from Season 2, super similar idea. The dark types end up becoming pretty powerful because all the strong charmers aren't really in there.
Mm. Yeah, I remember Umbreon was pretty big in the Catacomb Cup, right?
It was, yeah. This time we don't have Umbreon, but similar idea with Mandibuzz now. Mandibuzz is basically just flying Umbreon.
Yeah, exactly. It is truly the Umbreon of the skies, just with all the same bulk. Not the same typing. It's got the flying typing as well, but it doesn't care about anything.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest difference, is it adds on those like electric, rock, and ice weaknesses.
Yeah.
Not that it even cares too much about those. Like, it'll still just eat a blizzard and just go, we'll be right. Because Mandibuzz
It's
is
not
just such
that
a
bulky, but it can definitely tank an avalanche from Frostlass, which is kind of disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
I reckon it probably can survive a blizzard, but it might do about 80%.
Yeah.
I want to find out now.
Well, the question is, a blizzard from what? Which
in this
Pokemon
map,
is this blizzard coming from? Whiscash is the main one that you're going to be seeing blizzard from.
I think the craziest stat about Mandibuzz is the fact that it can take not one, but 2 hyper beams from Diggersby.
The blizzard only does 60% to Mandibuzz.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Mandibuzz is just a bulk machine that can tank hits from every single direction. And
but how many frustrations can it take from Charmander?
Exactly.
I think rumor has it that Shadow Matang would need to burn thousands of energy to be able to take out a Mandibuzz with just frustrations. But let's kind of start to dive in a little bit into what the Vortex Cup meta actually looks like. So, there's obviously a lot of stuff going on in this cup. We've pretty much got the dark types are going to be big, including that Mandibuzz, that Umbreon of the Sky, pretty much like a very big part of this meta with no fairy types and whatnot. And we do actually have, we could just jump like straight into the meat and potatoes and jump into the never before seen Go Stadium graphic that is.
Yeah.
Okay, share screen. Here we are, the Yo Stadium meta simplified sort of graphic. So, Tangent, do you kind of want to run us through what we're looking at in here, see what we're seeing?
Yeah, what you're kind of seeing is you're seeing sort of different groupings of different sort of important mons within the meta. So you can see like the big red boxes around the fighters. So you have Primeape and you have Toxicroak in there, but I think kind of the two of them, you're seeing a lot more Primeape. Like this is really Primeape's meta. But you'll see a bit of Toxicroak as well. So we kind of have them both in the same spot because they're fairly similar. And so you can see like with that, you also have like dragons. You have Zweilous and Dragonair together. And just sort of above them, you have Mandibuzz, which in some ways is kind of similar to coverage to Zweilous, but the different typings between flying and dragon can kind of affect things. You have like your sort of like you have Frostlass here on the bottom, and Frostlass is obviously a very big part of the meta. You have Crustle and Ninetales, which are together kind of as like the biggest like hard counters to Frostlass you'll typically see in the meta.
And Galvantula.
And Galvantula. Oh yeah, and well, you're right.
Is Galvantula that hard of a Frostlass counter?
No, it's they're hard counters to Galvantula and Frostlass.
Oh, right.
Yeah, because that's the thing, is there's not a lot of things that can beat both. So having something of that role that can beat both the Frostlass and the Galvantula can be pretty important.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Galvantula and Frostlass are like those two mons that are like, if these dudes have an energy advantage, you are in for a world of hurt as soon as you bring in anything else.
And if they have a shield advantage, you might as well just give up.
Yeah. Just do the GBL, top left, leave, bye.
Yeah.
Although Ninetales is unusual because it's one of the few things that can sometimes beat Frostlass when it's down a shield.
And Ninetales is one that... Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say that I've been looking at a lot of the tournaments that have kind of been going on so far, and Ninetales is just showing up on like every, like, you can actually clearly see like all of the top battlers, all of the kind of ace trainers and high challengers, they all have a Ninetales, and then there's like kind of fewer and fewer Ninetales as you go down, which means that the people who are like really knowledgeable, really know their stuff, know that Ninetales is a huge asset to have in this cup. And I mean, I guess here's the exact reason. You've got
I guess while we're talking about that real quick, I guess we can talk about the differences a little bit, and probably why Ninetales is more popular is because it's going to have a better Primate matchup than Crustle or any of those other rock types. It's not weak to fighting, and it's not like resisted by Primate. But then the trade-offs come that it's not quite as good against like the dragon types, and it's also What's the other trade-off? Oh, it loses the head-to-head with the rock types too.
Yeah, and also Pelliper and Mantine is a lot tougher. Like Crustle is actually pretty solid with Smackdown in those matchups, whereas Ninetales is just toast.
Yeah, definitely.
Ninetales might be a slightly stronger than Crustle in neutral matchups as well, because
Yeah.
Weatherball's a really great move and also has access to some nice coverage moves, especially Overheat, which is much higher DP than anything Crustle has.
Yeah.
Are you advertising for not Solar Beam Ninetales? I thought everyone was on Team Get Beamed at all times.
Oh, I'm like one of the people who love like Beam Ninetales, but in this meta, I think you actually really want Overheat.
I think Beam on Ninetales. So Overheat's interesting in general because its DP is so high, especially because it gets stabbed, that it can often match things like Solar Beam Return and Psyshock. It's like its DP is not that different in a resisted matchup. So you don't necessarily need type coverage for resisted matchups. But the interesting thing about Solar Beam is it can often have 2 levels of type effectiveness difference. So against a water type Pokemon, they resist Overheat and they're weak to Solar Beam. And then it can make a big difference. But because it doesn't give you as much damage against fire types or dragons, I think the edge for Solar Beam tends to be in metas where water types are popular and fire and dragon Pokemon are unpopular. And that's not really this meta. In this meta, fire types and dragon types are popular. So I think that knocks Solar Beam down a little bit.
Yeah, and the other thing to note is like Solar Beam has better DPE than Psyshock if they're 1 level effectiveness different. So like against a fire type or a dragon type, Overheat actually has better damage per energy, even if that Overheat is resisted and Psyshock is neutral. It just shows you how hard Overheat hits. And the other thing too is, like Nesabethan was saying, like he was talking about how like Solar Beam is mostly for the water types, but if half the water types here are also part ice, Overheat does a pretty good job there anyways. So it's really only going to be like the Quagsire, the Whiscash,
and then I mean Pelliper and Mantine have the flying timing as well, so it's like
right. So Solar Beam's only neutral, so yeah, I'm not sure the effectiveness there, but yeah. So there are some. I mean, there's a case for Solar Beam, and it will help you in some matchups, but it just seems like Overheat is the better all-around move here. It just hits so hard, and like if you're able to sneak one through or like just get to like a last second Overheat, it's going to do a ton of damage. Yeah, because it also helps all your neutral fights. Like if you're fighting like a Hypno or a Mandibuzz or something like that, and you're able to get in an Overheat, that's going to do a very high amount of damage.
Yeah, I think the neutral matchups are the interesting thing about Overheat, because Overheat, because it's so powerful, it's not necessarily worse than the coverage moves in resisted matchups. But then when you go into a neutral matchup, it's just miles better than Psyshock or Return or Weatherball. If you can land it, it gives you so much more potential, and it's not necessarily worse than resisted matchups.
Yeah, you also have to consider what the water types in the meta are. Like Solar Beam is absolutely amazing in an Azumarill or Jellicent sort of meta, because those are 2 water types that are kind of slower, and you can kind of get there. But against like Whiscash and Quagsire, like you need to really set up to make it work, because like you need a ton of energy because they just outpace you so fast. Like you're either burning shields to keep your Ninetales alive just to get to that 1 beam chance, or you're just toast. Like Pelliper is hitting you with weather balls like every like second. so it really comes down to like what also is in the meta.
Well, you've heard it here first, folks. Don't use Solar Beam.
You can use Solar Beam. I just think there's a little bit more you can get with Overheat in this specific meta.
Yeah, because even like, mons like Zweilous or a Dragonair will be like, oh, like I resist Weather Ball, I resist Solar Beam, I don't need to tank this, and then you land an Overheat and it does, I don't know what percentage, but it does way more damage than they're going to be expecting, and they're going to regret not shielding it.
Yeah.
If you put the Shadow, Overheat does 60% of his wireless. I think from the non-Shadow, it does about 50% of his wireless.
Yeah. An interesting one to look up is Dragonair. You can actually, I think, beat Dragonair in the with one like fire spin as a shadow Ninetales, you can actually beat Dragonera with like a 1 fire spin energy advantage by having overheat.
Oh, so you need to like bait the weather ball and then get the overheat.
Yeah, but I mean, what you would probably do is you probably would build up to about like 100 energy or something. And you throw the overheat to not to shield it anyways, and then you like sort of either farm down or like you throw the weather balls to start trying to drop the shields.
Oh, it's suggesting
what is
triple
this,
legacy.
What is this move?
What
is happening?
Yeah, forget overheat. That's it.
Whether we just want overheat, but
I think Fire Blast rivals Solar Beam is a move.
Tangent, is that with Ember or Fire Spin?
You probably wouldn't want Fire Spin typically for the energy gains, and also, I mean, Ember's gonna toss you like an elite TM, so like you're probably it doesn't give you much situational advantage, so you might as well just run Fire Spin.
I think when you have charge moves, like Weather Ball by itself has a DPE of about 1.8 and overheat. What's overheat? Like 2.2 or something? When the DPE of your charge moves is that high, I think the additional energy gain of Fire Spin is more beneficial than the additional first move damage of Ember.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like, Weather Ball's a very good move with solid DPE, and then overheat just nukes things. Like,
yeah, I think
only does about half of as wireless, which is obviously still a lot better than it could be doing otherwise.
Right, and
yeah, shadow 60%.
Shadow. Oh, I know the shadow click is down here.
Yeah, there's all.
Yeah, 60%.
And that's
that plus a couple of these. Well, one weather ball plus overheat plus the fire spins would presumably do you.
Yeah, if you catch someone trying to like farm you down, you can just get them. Like they might not see it coming. They might be like, "Oh, I can take this weather ball. Uh-oh, I'm actually toast."
Really, really nice play with Ninetales is if you get something low enough health that you can farm down, and they have no energy. You farm it down with the Ninetales, and your switch clock's clear, so you can just throw an overheat at whatever comes in. It doesn't really matter if it's resisted or not, and then you can switch to clear your attack drop. That's sort of like textbook Kenta Ninetales.
Yeah.
So you don't really want to use it as a safe swap necessarily, unless you're feeling kind of safe.
Use it as a leader or closer, yeah.
Yeah, you'd have to have a very specific opposing team comp to safe swap it. I mean, it's definitely an option, but it probably wouldn't be my first choice if I'm looking for something safe.
So is Carracosta the only one in the meta that would be okay tanking an overheat?
Oh yeah.
There's maybe Kingdra.
Yeah, Kingdra. Yeah.
Oh, true.
Double resistance. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that Mandibuzz could take it on the chin as well, but
it does a lot.
It would for Mandibuzz. It's already a really close matchup with Mandibuzz.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, I mean, is anyone actually using Crustle though? Like,
I am. I love Crustle.
Okay, then I'll take a step back.
I think Crustle's pretty good because Smackdown hits a lot here. It hits the Ninetales, it hits the Galvantula, it hits the Frostlass. It's going to hit any of the water ices, Mandibuzz, Pelliper, Mantine.
Yeah. It has wind. I was gonna say it has wind.
It's only resisted by fighting and ground, which there's not a ton of really.
Yeah, is the only real big one that's total.
And Primeape is squishy as well, so I mean, it's like even if you're resisted, like you're gonna get at least some run from that matchup. You're definitely gonna force Primeape to use its energy to take you out, which is it's not a winning matchup, but it's not as terrible as like Crustle versus something like Metachan would be, where like it's just bulky and resisting your moves.
Like Primeape can't really straight up farm Crustle down. It either has to burn a shield or use some energy. Because just that Smackdown plus X Scissor damage, even though it's all resisted, it's so squishy that it's basically dead if it tries to go for a straight farm down.
Yeah. And Nesabethan will attest if we were testing out Shadow Sealeo, and one of the ones I used at one point was Crustle in like that testing phase. And there's a point he tried to farm me down with mud shots with a Whiz Dash. And it ended up, I think, taking both of his shields because like he had to keep all that energy alive from X Scissors. And it was like, I couldn't believe Crustle lived that long. was crazy.
Nesabethan is just sitting there getting flashbacks of. Okay, so we've got those down. Obviously, Galvantron and Frostlass are the big gruesome twosome. Mantine and Pelliper are two that I have been seeing a fair bit as well, which is kind of interesting picks. Obviously, Mantine is like constantly one of the most annoying Pokemon that can appear in any meta of all time, just because for one, just Bubble Beam is really annoying in play, but also it's incredibly hard to actually sim. You have no idea how good it can actually do in a meta until you kind of get in there and get a little bit dirty.
Yeah.
Are they actually like that great? Because I think the big thing that they can kind of do is beat Primeape, which is definitely a big bonus. But is that kind of the only reason? Oh, they're also beating the Ninetales Crustle combo.
Not necessarily Crustle. Crustle's really close.
I mean, compared with Mandibuzz as an alternative flyer, they obviously have a more neutral Crustle matchup than Mandibuzz does. So that's one of the bunch.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Mantine would. Because Yahwertle would be doing pretty good.
Yeah, I was gonna say the interesting thing about Mantine is I actually probably would run it with Wayne Attack in this meta.
Yeah.
It's
that's what I was thinking about too. It seems like generally better coverage.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got three groups that's better against. You got the Fighters, you got the Dragons, and you got the Warthrizers at the top. Wayne Attack's better against all of those.
I don't really see anything that's worse against. I just Crustle, but
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it would be like
you're so solid in that matchup.
Yeah, I think Ninetales, Crustle, Probopass, like basically that group is the only thing you'd really want Bubble for, I think.
Yeah, it's Ninetales for sure. Bubble Beam's kind of all you really need to keep that one going.
Yeah, it doesn't need Bubbles to beat Ninetales.
Exactly.
But Diggersby is one that I haven't seen too many people using either. And I'm kind of not sure how much stock Diggersby has in this meta. Like, I feel like more people are kind of leaning towards the sort of Whiscash and Quagsire route where they have more flying coverage.
Yeah.
Whereas
I wouldn't
Diggersby is a bit stuck.
Yeah, Diggersby... Well, here's the thing, actually. Diggersby has tons of flying coverage. You just need to run it with Hyper Beam. It sounds funny, but it's actually... I think that's the set you want with if you're running Diggersby in this meta, you definitely want Hyper Beam. Like,
I mean, what does Earthquake give you? You've got Fire Punch for a bunch of the stuff like Galvantula, so you don't need Earthquake for those sort of matchups.
Earthquake's a bit faster when you're taking on things like Zweilous and Dragonair, where you need to hit it with your charge move. But I mean, you can still get the win conditions if you can land the Hyper Beam. But like Ninetales is also one where you definitely want Earthquake in that matchup, but you can definitely like make it with Hyper Beam. Like, and Earthquake isn't even a sure thing. You can actually lose to Ninetales with an Earthquake Diggersby. It's possible. There are scenarios.
Well, anything's possible.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Ninetales can actually straight Weather Ball it in the 2-shield if you just don't bait it. Like, so if you're just going straight Earthquake, like Ninetales can just eventually take you out with Weather Balls. But yeah, you definitely want Hyper Beam here because the flyers, like Mandibuzz, you definitely want that coverage for it. And like Pelliper, you're just completely walled. Mantine, you're just completely walled if you don't have the beam.
Are there any matchups you would want Earthquake for?
Ninetales, I think speedier for Zweilous and
Probopass, right?
You definitely want to, but I mean, you're probably gonna beat Probopass straight like Hyper. It's like the Mardo. It's like the Mardo matchup, just taking it down with the Sludge Wave.
Yeah, I mean,
still be very impressive.
Unless Probopass is running Magnet Bomb, you're gonna resist all its moves.
Actually, Fire Punch is actually neutral.
Yeah, Fire Punch is neutral in Mud.
Oh yeah, that would be unlikely.
Yeah.
It's not as clean of a matchup, but you should be able to win that one still. Probably Carracosta.
Clean matchup is also like assuming you get the baits and stuff right, which cannot be clean.
Yeah.
Well, versus Probopass, you would just go straight Fire Punch if you're not running Earthquake.
Yeah, it's got to be pretty easy. It might be
you'd probably bluff Earthquake Energy if they hadn't seen that you had Hyper Beam, but throw the Fire Punch.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess Carracosta would be one you would kind of want Earthquake for, but that's not super meta, not super popular right now.
You're also like kind of resisting most of what hits thrown at you, so you're probably just going to go straight to the hyper beams. It's not very. I mean, obviously, you would definitely want Earthquake for it, but I mean, I think you might even still be able to win. Although Surf, actually, that should be a bit rough, but. But Diggersby
is Surf Edge banned, or was that the last cup?
Which one?
It is Surf Edge is banned, isn't it?
Yeah, Surf Edge is
I
banned.
was saying, yeah, I was saying like Surf on Carracosta.
Oh, Surf.
No, so
I was like, oh, I know Surf Edge. Wait a minute, wasn't he on the graphic? Yeah, I feel like not many people have a Carracosta build. I feel like I think it was pretty useful in Catacomb Cup, but yeah, I wonder if it's a little bit too down low enough on the radar that hasn't really been used a fair bit. I feel like Crustle probably has a bit more stock than Carracosta in this cup.
Oh, definitely.
The electric weakness is quite a big step up for Carracosta because Crustle obviously reliably beats Galvantula, whereas Carracosta, it can beat it, but it's a much more awkward matchup than with Crustle.
Yeah. I was also going to say, like, Crustle's kind of like the sort of the generalist in the sense. Like, it doesn't beat things as hard, but it also doesn't really lose as hard. So it's a bit sort of less, like where Probopass and Carracosta are both sort of more like the rock, paper, scissors ones. They're the ones that, if you get it in the right matchup, they're going to completely crush something. Like Carracosta doesn't even really fear much from a Frostlass. You're just going to, like, wipe it with your rock throws and, like, resist, and like if you're up against the Ninetales, you're just gonna wipe Ninetales unless it beams you.
Which, as we've gone over, maybe not the best idea to have it anyway.
Exactly.
But actually, one person did mention in chat, Toxicroak is one that Earthquake might be nice to have, but even then,
yeah, it's true. Mm-hmm.
It's a bit.
Hyper Beam would still one shot it. It would just be slightly slower.
Yeah, and you'd be taking.
Hyper Beam was more of a flex at that point, right?
Yeah.
For the flex.
Hello. Probably shielding anyways.
Wait, was that? Oh, do we have a fifth member?
I think we do.
Oh, we're in grid view now. Oh no, I need to open it up on this one. Hang on. Boop. Oh, can I do grid view here? Let's squish this in. Oh no. Okay. Make this nice and tall. And bring it down a bit. Hey, and I didn't need to make it wider, so I can probably just shorten it back up. Okay, we have the fifth amigo has joined us. So real quick, RughPoo, if you do want to kind of introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm RughPoo. I just joined the team as a meta analyst and writer, both for Pokemon Go and then possibly for Unite as well. I don't do as much Sylph as I used to, but I feel like the whole Go Stadium gig will definitely bring me back into the fray of Sylph a little bit. I play a lot of Go Battle League, love running Spice. I think I peaked at like 7th on the leaderboard or something. It's like my one big PvP flex. Yeah, I have a big love for the game and I play it way too much.
Don't we all?
Yeah. Describe for us what the final form of Torchic looks like.
Oh yeah.
Is a big red and orange fire chicken with very, very long legs. And it has counter. I feel like that's the most important part. Although I did have someone try to stunt on me with a fire spin 1/1 in Forest Cup. My Braylon did not like that.
Yeah.
Nor would Galvantula, I would imagine. Oh wait, yeah, Galvantula was around then, I think. But yeah, we've just been going through the Vortex Cup meta Go Stadium graphic.
I'm very happy with how it turned out.
Mm-hmm. We haven't even dived into the lower half of it, the stuff down here where Probopass is sitting, and many of the picks that where's this one will probably be down here.
Yeah,
hopefully not down here, but real quick, Hypno Moveset. What's the one to run?
I think Ice Punch Shadow Ball is like standard, although I certainly think that there is some case for Fire Punch or Thunder Punch, really. But I think that you need Ice Punch just for some counterplay. against those hard counters like Swilus, Dragonair, and Mandibuzz, you're still gonna lose, but you can maybe like get them into farm down range, or
Can it win Dragonair with Ice Punch?
It might be able to, yeah. Yeah,
it probably loses to Swilus
Dragonair.
loses Swilus and Mandibuzz, I'm sure, are losses, but I think it wins Dragonair with Ice Punch.
Yeah. I mean, it's super like bulky, and Dragonair doesn't have the resistance to confusion, so you're probably gonna win that matchup.
Yeah,
I think
no matter what you run in the 2-shield, you'll just confusion it down.
Yeah.
It always felt that way when I ran Dragonair and Kanto Cup.
Yeah, it's Dragonair is not super tanky, so you're probably gonna be able to win with just straight Ice Punch.
Yeah, also Hypno is pretty bulky and it doesn't care too much about Dragonair's moves.
No. It's like Aqua Tail. Uh-oh. Oh no. I'm slowly loading.
Done.
This is why I'm afraid to start streaming.
Slow motion sim.
And it's gone.
Yeah.
So yeah, Ice Punch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like Ice Punch is probably like certainly a lock. And then
I think Shadow Ball for a lot of neutrals good. You kind of
potentially go Fire Punch. I
always look at if you look at this graphic, with what moveset, what things could you hit with both of those moves for at least neutral? I feel like Ice Punch is neutral on almost everything. Like you miss out on Ninetales, you miss out on Frost Blast and the Water Ices. You just want something that can cover them.
Mm-hmm.
And anything will really do. Fire Punch would leave you walled against Ninetales if you ran Ice Punch, Fire Punch. But Thunder Punch provides nice coverage on all three. And I think Shadow Ball, you can actually win Frost Blast. I believe in the Zero Shield, you actually tank a Shadow Ball and then land one back against it. And there's not much here that resists Shadow Ball.
Yeah.
The dark types.
Yeah, the dark types that all have a typing that
Punch
you can hit with Ice Punch. And then Diggersby also resists Shadow Ball, but obviously it takes super effective from Ice Punch. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Shadow Ball also has that play in the Hypno Mirror, which is, nice
I'm surprised
as well.
Steve hasn't tried to sell some Focus Blast.
guys. There's dark types, and therefore you want our Focus Blast to be able to just nuke that Swilus out of existence. I just don't think there's. I mean, I was going to say I don't think there's quite enough to Focus Blast, but I guess a lot of it's kind of down on the lower bit in other rocks, especially.
Mm-hmm.
Probopass would make a difference against.
Yeah.
It's actually it's kind of, maybe I can just zoom out a bit more. That'll have to do. We obviously have a bunch more picks here. We've got other dragons, other rocks, grasses, other electrics, other fighters, wild cards. I guess grasses didn't have to be other grasses because none of them were cool enough to be able to land themselves on the graphic. So they are the only grasses that we're going to see here.
Yeah, it's not a great meta for grasses. When you have Ninetales, you have Frostlass, you have Galvantula, and you have dragons.
And Mandibuzz.
And Mandibuzz, that's right. It's a tough meta for grasses to be in. They fill that niche because they can beat Diggersby and the Mudboys. And are decent against the water ices, but it's tough for them here.
Yeah.
I mean,
this is one reason why.
I was going to say there's a reason we didn't go for Solar Beam or Ninetales.
Yeah. This is one reason why Whiscash and Quagstar are doing so well, because the grasses are sort of off meta and they're quite rare, and even people who have them in their team are often not actually using them in battle. So Whiscash and Quagstar have sort of become, they're performing well, they're quite popular, and they've sort of become safe switches against a lot of teams.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like the two, Cordilli and Ferrothorn probably have the most play, although you end up doing not too hot against fighters. You have some fight back against Mandibuzz, especially Cordilli. I think probably beats Mandibuzz. And then you can win some other things, you do better against Galvantula than the other grasses. It really has some play against even Ninetales. It Cradilly is probably the most relevant grass here, I personally would say. I think
I feel like
Chestnut
you
can
could-
almost fill that role too.
I feel like you could
I
do
think
pretty
the
good in this
biggest-
meta.
The biggest problem with them is you're adding another fighting weakness.
Yeah.
And so
for
that
sure.
can be tough. Like if you already have maybe like a Zweilous and a Lapras on your team or something, like you have to be careful of how weak you're becoming to like Toxicroak and more importantly Primate. Because Primate can beat a lot here, especially with Night Slash. It beats Frostlass and the 2 shield and maybe the 1 shield?
I think it wins the 1 shield, yeah.
Depends. IVs. Frostlass with like 115 point. I think it was 115.66 defense or more. Actually hits a bolt point and wins the 1 shield as well against Primate. Oh, I should
And then
specify.
there's the nice slash boost as well.
If it doesn't boost, yeah. If it boosts, it can completely change everything.
Yeah, then there's no chance.
You're like, no, not the boost.
But yeah, so that's the thing is like Primate can beat Frostlass and it's going to beat all the other ices for sure. It'll win Zweilous. It'll win any rock types like the Crustle or any of the other rocks. And so just depending on your team comp, you just have to make sure you're not becoming overly weak to fighting. And that's the biggest problem with a Ferrothorn or the Shift Tree or the Cradilly is they're all just adding that extra fighting weakness.
Mm-hmm.
I know that like watching Jag Does Hurdles play in the Labyrinth Cup using Cradilly though, it feels like just such a Pokemon that can kind of get itself out of any sort of scenario just by playing around everything with energy. Get a bit of energy here, get a little bit of energy here, and it's just an absolute wrecking ball. And basically like everything else except the fighters. Like nothing else would love to see Cradilly on the battlefield.
Yeah, I like Cradilly a lot, and like I haven't really tested it much in this specific meta, but I'm a huge Cradilly fan in general. Like I think it's a really fun Pokemon. I love just how much Bolt it has. So it's definitely something to consider. Like it's still a very tough meta for grass. Like, you can definitely do a lot with your Stone Edges, but a lot of the stuff that you're trying to hit are also resisting like your grass moves. So it's a bit rough. Like against Mandibuzz, like Stone Edge is huge, but also like your fast move is doing 0.
Yeah. I mean, Bullet Seed was already not a damaging move to start, and like once you're up against a Mandibuzz, it's doing negative damage. It's just you're just healing the Mandibuzz as you kind of go on until you can get that Stone Edge off in the meantime.
Should still be a solid matchup, though. It's probably similar to Quagsire, where Mudshot's doing nothing, but your Stone Edges are just completely rough to it. So like I think but the only difference between it and Quagsire is it's a tad slower.
So I did kind of pass over it, but the other dragons, the Dragonair and the Dragonite, I feel like Dragonite was like really high on the rankings, like really early on PvPoke. But I think Dragonite has mostly fallen off since then in favor of the kind of Zweilous and Dragonair sort of pairings. Is that just because Dragonite is not built for Great League? It just wasn't meant to be.
The two big differences between Dragonite and the other dragons in Dragonair and Zweilous, it loses in the mirror. It gets outbulked by both Dragonair and Zweilous pretty consistently. And then that double ice weakness, you can just get farmed down by Frostlass and without a care in the world. And Frostlass with 100 energy, that's probably the most deadly thing in the entire meta.
Yeah, that's another one where you just top left leave.
Yeah, pretty much. I think Kingdra could have some play with its unique typing, but I think Dragonite it's just kind of a little worse. The flying doesn't do too much for the actual typing. You beat the fighters, which is nice. It gives it an advantage over Zweilous, but overall it's just less bulky. So in those neutral scenarios, you'll be losing out a lot more often.
Yeah,
I think they can still do a lot of damage to Dragonite. It's not like it's not as hard a counter as like Hypno or Air/Mandibuzz or.
Yeah, very true.
I think it's even less hard than Pelliper because it takes quite a lot of damage from that moves. And it's not doing super effective either. So.
Mm-hmm. I think the other thing is it's kind of team composition dependent. Like a lot of if you look around the meta, there's a ton of stuff that's weak to rock. And like you're just adding another thing that's weak to rock. Like if you look at the amount of things that, like, if you just looked around the draft, you go, okay, which of these things are weak to rot? Okay, Galvantula, Frostlass, the Water Ices, Mandibuzz, Mantine and Pelliper. There's a ton of things. Ninetales. Like, there's a ton of things weak to rot, and you're just throwing another one in. So it's team comp dependent, like, because you could have a specific one, and I think people who love, like, their Shadow Mons, like, they could run a Dragonair, they can run a Shadow Dragonair, but, like, some people are like, I really want to run this, like, Shadow Dragonite. This is this really super cool, fun thing to run. But I think they'll definitely have play, but I think some of the other dragons tend to be sort of higher up in the meta for that reason.
What about Kingdra, though? Like, what really beats Kingdra here? I'm not really seeing much of it.
Nothing specifically hard beats it.
It's out in some neutral scenarios.
Yeah. I think
Kingdra has very high safety. It's Frostlass is sort of known for being a safe Pokemon, and we put it on our safe switch article. But Frostlass has some fairly reliable counters that become popular, especially Ninetales, but also the rock types.
Yeah, Kingdra would not have worked.
Time bringing them down.
Yeah, Kingdra wouldn't have worked.
Sorry,
I was gonna say it wouldn't really work for a safe swap article, because, like, the entire article would, like, the graphic would just be things that beat Kingdra. Maybe it's like so many things that highly depend on that Octazoota. Like
50-50 chance.
I think the biggest counter to Kingdra swap is going to be one of the other Dragon Breath users probably.
I think then that's sort of like it can win if the health's right and it can farm the Kingdra down, but it's because it's kind of a neutral matchup. It's not what you consider a hard counter.
I'm just wondering something like, I guess mostly like a Zweilous is going to get to body slams faster than Kingdra's going to get to anything.
Yeah. I think the best counter to a Kingdra safe swap is to not panic. I think one of the things that people do is you have, like, a winning lead, for example, and you see the swap happen, and that you want to maintain that lead. But sometimes you have, like, a Pokemon in the back that can handle that lead as well. When Kingdra gets swapped in, one of the most dangerous things you can do is, like, insta swap and then, like, invest a shield and then Octazoota and get debuffed, and then you get farmed. And, like, it's just like you just end up in this really bad spot where, like, if you just kind of leave the lead in for a bit, maybe chip Kingdra down a bit, maybe let it throw the first charge move. You can maybe shield it if you want to, but if you have the opportunity to, like, switch after the Octazoota and, like, still kind of maintain your switch order.
I think Twastell's comparison with Zweilous is quite interesting, because Zweilous is probably a slightly better generalist than Kingdra. It doesn't have all the Octazooka trickery and outrageous higher DPU than Zweilous has, but it does have faster moves. So in the lower shield scenarios, it can outspeed Kingdra and some other Pokemon, sort of neutral matchups. But it doesn't have the safety of Kingdra because it has more weaknesses, which is sort of where the appeal of Kingdra comes from. And also in the Dragon Mirrors, if they both have shields, they die so fast to Dragon Breath that you don't normally get off 3 charge moves. So the 2 shield scenario tends to be dependent on maybe even the 1 shield. I can't remember actually. But it tends to be more dependent on which one has more health at the beginning of the Dragon Breath beatdown.
I mean, if Kingdra is up against another Dragon Breather, there's no way it's getting to 2 charge moves. Like, it's only got 1 Octazooka chance, and then I think even Zweilous can't get to 3, but I'm not completely sure on that one.
I think I don't think there is a 2 shield scenario with Dragon Breath Mirrors. I just
there's really not.
Like, you don't get 1 move, but I think that's where the chip down can really help. Like, if you see a Kingdra come in, maybe if you have something that has if you have, like, let's say it switches into a Mandibuzz, like, you can probably hit a quick foul play and then go straight to Zweilous and then, like, they're going to be lower on health or down a shield, and, like, you have a bit more to play with in that situation.
Yeah, Dragon Breath Mirrors are never fun. I played a draft tournament through a server with a bunch of close friends, and I ran a Mega Charizard X and came against a Kingdra, and that is one of the quickest mirrors I've ever seen, because they're both just so glassy and high damage, doing super effective fast. Oh my gosh, it was crazy. There's hardly even a 1 shield scenario in that.
Yeah, on the sort of more objective measure of the safety of Kingdra, it's if you do it in 1-0 shields against the Vortex Cup, the whole cup, it's got a higher win rate than something like Frostlass or some other fairly safe Pokemon. It's almost 99%. It's over 98% win rate against
Yeah,
the whole.
and there's Jirachi, Alolan Sandshrew, Bronzong, Forretress, Alolan Sandslash, Steelix, Ferrothorn. Oh, Ferrothorn's interesting. That could be one that it's probably its most meta counter.
Yeah,
it loses Shadow Dragonair in the 1-0 because it's one of those that Dragon Breath just adds up too quickly. And then like the Charmers, like
one's going to be like the chip damage sort of matchup that's quite iffy. It's not like Ferrothorn where Ferrothorn just wins. That's going to be sort of.
But also, if you're worried about Ferrothorn, I remember from Forest Cup, some people were in Blizzard.
Yeah,
you can flip that Ferrothorn matchup by landing a Blizzard.
that's true. An option,
but I don't think Ferrothorn's quite meta relevant enough to need to do that.
Yeah, that wouldn't be the reason to do it. Is the
yeah? I think Ferrothorn is too niche here. Like I haven't really seen people running it.
Right. My point is like if Ferrothorn usage like suddenly shoots up for some reason, and you're really wanting to run Kingdra, maybe that's the play. But I think it's
I agree.
Too far and few between right now.
Yeah. Has anyone noticed the caption underneath Ferrothorn in the graphic?
Yeah.
Zoom in.
I tried. I couldn't read it, and then I gave up. Oh yeah.
He's probably too busy endorsing Superior with Leaf Tornado.
Oh
Lord.
No, that is a fun one because I was actually playing my GBL battles today, and so the team I've been running, this is completely unrelated to Vortex, but I just think this is just such a fun story to Superior brought up. The team I'm running is Tropius, Regirock, and Vidoroth. I just wanted to run Regirock because I wanted just to take out this army of Talonflames that were showing up. So, anyways, the lead matchup was Superior against Tropius, and they tried to Leaf Tornado me down the entire way. They just did nothing. So bad.
Did they forget they had Aerial Ace?
I think they were like, oh, they're going to shield this. I'm just going to hit them with a Leaf Tornado. And then they got stubborn and they tried it the second time and they tried it the third time.
I'll get a shield this time, I swear.
And it never, they used both of their shields.
They were really determined to get that debuff through. Oh dear.
Hey, so what do you guys think about these other rocks here?
Yeah, okay. So Probopass is one that you fellas have just kept mentioning as we've gone through this. Sell me on Probopass. Why would I bring Probopass as opposed to like Crustle?
It beats Crustle.
It does beat Crustle. I think the advantage is what it does things way harder than Crustle does. Like it's trying to secure you the matchups you want it to secure you. But then the downside is when it's in bad matchups, like it's toast. Like it's one of those things where I actually don't really like Probopass very much because of the position of the Muds and Primeape in the meta. Like you're gonna win a match. Like let's just say someone switches to Frostlass, you're gonna take that Frostlass set with Probopass for sure. Like 100%, you're gonna crush it. But then like someone's just gonna send in Primeape and finish with like 100 energy.
Yeah.
I think we saw. I think it was through YTX that almost every single winning team had both a fighter and a ground of some sort on it. So pretty much every team is carrying some sort of very reliable steel counter or two. So playing into that, I think just steel in general doesn't have a massive place in this meta. There's certainly some things that it gets you. Resisting that Dragon Breath is great. Beating Frostlass and resisting the ice damage is great. There's not too much that does that either. But then, like Tangent was saying, comparatively to Crustle, you'll either win massively harder or lose massively harder.
I think the way you want to use Probopass in this meta is sort of twofold. You'd almost want to use it as a lead if you have sort of a sense as to what they're going to lead and try to win that lead very hard. Because it's a very rock, paper, scissors mon. So you need to use it as a rock, paper, scissors mon. That's one sort of way you might see it used. And another way that to see it highly effectively used is like in some sort of an ABB lineup where it's the second one that comes out. Whereas if you can draw like the prime out with something, like if you have something on your team, like there's the Whalers, for example, that's going to draw their Primeape out. It's like their counter. Then at the very end of the matchup, boom, there's the Probopass, and they've lost their hardcore counter to it.
Yeah, I considered bringing it as like an ABB focused Sylph line, but I went with double electric instead of double rock.
Nice.
So sell us on this double electric then.
I'm running Magnezone and Alolan Graveler.
Is it not even Galvantula?
No, with double flyers and then Hypno and Primate. Basically, it's like select an ADB. Am I going to run a Rock with 2 flyers in the back? Am I going to run Primate with 2 flyers in the back? Am I going to run Hypno with 2 electrics? A flyer with 2 electric? Which flyers are going to be? I just feel like Sylph generally hasn't caught up to GBL in that sense. The GBL, we see a lot of ABB teams nowadays. And it's kind of hard to do that in Sylph because it's easy to select 3 Pokemon that go together as an ABB team. But whenever you're building a team of 6 and your opponent can see it beforehand, they might be able to like predict that. So I kind of wanted to try to bring like a combination of lines that all result in an ABB. And if they don't guess correctly or have like 2 counters in the back, then it can be really easy to overpower.
Yeah. I think that's the reason it hasn't been as popular, so you can see the teams beforehand. So I feel like you kind of get a sense that that's kind of the way someone's building. You can kind of predict it if you can sort of think in advance. But I think typically in Sylph you see like a sort of a different style of ABB where like it's not necessarily like this with 2 rods. It's like these 2 Pokemon in the back both lose to the same thing, but this one is going to be able to draw it out, and then this one's going to be able to take advantage later.
Yeah, very true. I also just wanted to try Magnezone.
I love the sounds of your lineup. It sounds really fun.
I'm running Magnezone in GBL right now, and it's something.
Regular or Shadow?
Regular. I think I didn't have a good enough Shadow candidate. I just built my regular. I'm running it with Focus Blast Gengar, and it has been the most fun I've ever had at Go Battle League. So many 2-Shield Bastion and G-Fisk. I got like screenshots on screenshots on screenshots of just Focus Blast and nukes going through. It's so great.
I was gonna say,
you're just using the wrong Focus Blaster. It's not Hypno, it's Gengar.
Yeah, I think it's.
I like the bulk on Hypno.
Yeah.
I do wonder how valuable Shadow is on the Pokemon like Magnezone, where like Wild Charge is already doing 150% to most things. So like, if you like Shadow, I guess the other advantage is when you get to the bad matchups, you die a lot faster. So like, at least like
less
you don't
fun.
get
It's definitely not the bulkiest meta overall. So I don't know if you really need that extra Shadow because your normal will probably do enough damage and you won't take that damage.
Still really cool though. I mean, it's definitely an option. But yeah, I'm not sure if it gives you a specific advantage other than, hey, this thing is cool. It's Shadow. It looks fun.
Yeah. It's Frostlass pretty hard. It does have that mirror shot. And then you can almost farm down Pelliper and Mantine with Sparks alone. Probably don't do that, but you probably could if you really wanted to.
Which one's the side swap out of Magnezone and Graveler in a Sylph tournament? Is Graveler the side swap and then Magnezone closes later?
It'll probably depend. I mean, you generally like, if I'm running double Rock in the back, you'll probably want to lead either like a Flyer or Hypno to then safe swap and draw out their fighter. I feel like Magnezone is probably the better safe swap in that too, because I think Graveler has much more strong like neutral finishing power, just because there's nothing that wants to tank a Stone Edge. Even like the Mud Boys, you do well over half with the Stone Edge. Yeah, so I think there's some teams that it falters against, like if they have double steel counters and like I was talking about earlier, in a fighter and a Mud Boy in the back. That kind of shut me down one game in a practice tournament. But yeah, I think both of them have really strong closing power. So it kind of just, you play it by ear. Whichever is the softer counter to their lead is what you go into.
All right, so someone want to try to sell us on Melmetal?
Yeah, we had it on the graphic originally, actually.
Yeah. It's Melmetal's not bad. It's just I think Melmetal has a couple of issues. Just the fact that it doesn't beat Galvantula necessarily. That was the thing that I thought was crazy.
Really?
Like Galvantula actually wins. I think the 1 shield and the 2 shield straight lunge. Like, it doesn't even need to use discard, just straight lunge.
Wow.
Which is crazy. So like it has some disadvantages in that sense, but the steel typing can be really helpful. Like me running a Crustle out there every now and then like hates to see something like Melmetal show up. So like it has its advantages.
Yeah, and I think some alternatives to Melmetal, you could run a Spark Probopass instead, or you could also run like a Fury Cutter Crustle, and instead of going for that consistent fast move damage, be a little more reliant on spamming your charge moves.
It does have a nice property though, like Melmetal's ability to resist Dryden. I just Spark Probopass to do this as well. But like that complete resistance to Dryden means that like with the superpower for Zweilous, like if you can pull that off right, you can definitely do a lot of damage.
Even against the dragons, it's generally in Melmetal's favor, but it's not the hardest counter. I can't remember all of the sims with it, but there are sims where Melmetal can lose.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Could Melmetal beat Galvantula before the Rock Slide nerf?
Probably. I think the Rock Slide nerf is definitely plays a role in its ability to. But I do think Galvantula wins by enough HP that I think the thing that you might drop is like the one shield. I think like the two shield you probably would have still won with Galvantula no matter what, but you may have had enough to win the one shield in the past.
Yeah, sure.
Another important aspect of Melmetal is it's weak to fire, whereas the rock Pokemon have much more favorable Ninetales matchup. And given Ninetales' popularity, I think that might have kept Melmetal a little bit lower in popularity than it might have been otherwise.
Yeah. And then the really fun one we found, like the one that RughPoo found that I thought was really interesting, because he had like Frostlass beats Melmetal in the 2-shield. This is like all the sims were on ranked 1 versus ranked 1. And like this is one of those weird situations where dropping Melmetal's attack that low is actually enough for Frostlass to get a bulk point to actually win that matchup in the 2-shield. So it's really funny because like someone's probably did a bunch of Meltan boxes, got like the absolute best ranked 1 Melmetal, only to lose that matchup to Frostlass.
It was arguably the most important matchup in the entire meta here.
The most what? Oh,
the most important matchup in the entire meta.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like I checked my Melmetal. I have like a rank 7, 2, 13, 15 Melmetal, and even that beat the ranked 1 Frostlass. Even that had enough attack. It's also shiny.
It's just like the peak of the rank.
Yeah, but even that, like a higher defense Frostlass would actually pull that off if it had more of a defensive weight to it. So like mine could potentially even drop that. Mine's shiny though, so I mean you got to run it for that reason. But
okay, so look to dragons, rocks, grasses, other electrics other than Magnezone, who obviously is going to be doing pretty well as well. Is there too much reason to bring these other electrics? Like, why these dudes and not Galvantula?
Stunfisk would be really underwhelming. I think the ground typing kind of holds it back here. Being you become weak to Frostlass, then you become very, very weak to the other mud boys. You'll take more damage from Weather Balls from Pelliper and Mantine. I definitely think that Stunfisk is probably the weak link of those three. I think Lantern is solid neutrally across a lot of matchups. Other than the Mud Boys and the Dragons resisting it, pretty much everything is neutral.
Yeah. I think
if Lantern and Stunfisk are going to have a different matchup profile than Galvantula, right? They're not weak to fire. They should both be winning that Ninetales matchup. And they're also neither is weak to rock. So they should be eating most of those rock types.
Yeah, Stunfisk is a hard rock counter.
Yeah.
So I think that's the biggest thing. It's just a very different matchup profile. Galvantula is so threatening, and is probably the better overall mon, but those two, the Lantern and the Stunfisk, just aren't weak to the same things.
So they may just fit very well in your team.
Yeah, it's a team comp thing. Like, for example, like I've seen teams running out there where it's like, I'm running Frostlass, and I'm running Galvantula, and I'm running Mandibuzz, and I'm very weak to rock. so it's very possible. And that's an easy thing that can happen, because like you want to pick all these beasts within the meta, but then you end up with this team where like any sort of rock Pokemon is just like crushing through you. That's where Stunfisk can kind of flip that. So I can see definitely the advantage to why you might run it.
I think Quagsire is quite a good comparison with Stunfisk because they're both ground Pokemon that have anti-flying moves.
Yeah.
And Quagsire, so obviously they're both pretty threatening to Mandas, and also they have coverage against the Water Ice Pokemon as well. And Quagsire isn't weak to Ice, which is quite beneficial. So and as a favorite matchup against Stunfisk itself, so it's not quite as spammy as Stunfisk. It's a bit. You might be more likely to die with energy wasted. You might be a bit less likely to convert your damage, but I think Quagsire is more popular partially for that reason.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I think Quagsire is a good comparison, actually. Probably generally better. Also has that Stone Edge for like Frostlass.
Agreed. Yeah, I think Quagsire is amazing coverage in this meta. I think the only disadvantages for Quagsire, but I think this is like. I don't think Stunfisk is really helping you in this case, but like in terms of Quagsire versus Whiscash, for example, it can get really into a tough spot and like when you have 2 shields still up. So it's a really great closer, but like if you get Frostlass 2 shields, you actually lose that really badly, and like the fighters are just rough because you're just taking counter damage, and like they just need to shield like once, and like you're probably gonna take you down.
Quagsire is pretty slow.
That's its
Stone Edge is the cheapest move. I guess Sludge Bomb's cheaper, right? Technically,
If Quagsire had Mud Bomb, like it would probably be the best Pokemon.
That would be the Galarian Stunfisk set, Rockside and Earthquake, which we know is really broad, unresisted coverage.
I think actually Mud Bomb and Stone Edge would be a really interesting set as well, though, because it would be like Whiscash, but with like a slightly faster Blizzard.
Yeah, it's almost like a reverse Galarian Stunfisk, where the ground type move is the bait and the rock type move is the nuke instead of the way around. Yeah, I'll be right back real quick. I gotta get a laptop charger.
No worries.
So yeah, let's do other electrics and then the other fighters.
There's Twastell's favorite there, Lucario.
I still don't think Lucario should have made it on there. I don't think it's a good Pokemon.
I mean, if it does fit, it is another fighter.
That is technically correct. But you pick up the fire weakness, you pick up the counter weakness, you pick up all of the wrong weaknesses.
I find Lucario is like the Probopass of fighters. It's the Probopass of fighters. It's like the fighter that is going to do much better when the matchup is positive, but you add so much negative.
It does. The ice resistance and the dragon resistance to give it something. But it's fairly favorable against the dragons, whereas the other fighters are kind of neutral. So, well, except for Zardus, obviously. But against things like Dragonite and Kingdra, that's one feature of.
Yeah, that's why this matchup is kind of nice though, because it does resist Dragon Breath and Body Slam and Dark Pulse.
Yeah.
But it's so squishy, I don't really think it can fully farm as wireless down.
Yeah, I was gonna say resist in a certain sense. Technically resists, but also like it's kind of like it basically its resistance is like neutral Mandibuzz.
But is it? I guess my question kind of boils down to why not Primate? Just bring Primate.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I think you're not going to really see a lot of the other fighters. I think there is some argument to make with Blaziken in comparison, because it does have a few things to play with that the other fighters don't. Like it has Stone Edge potentially for anything that flies, which is really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we've gone over how good Rocky is in this meta, and
yeah, exactly. Frostlass, like it has resistance to the ice moves, so there is some benefit in that sense. So I do think that you can add a little bit of. I think for the right team composition, I think Blaziken would be worth considering. Delayed could have its own unique sort of interest as well. Same with I think of that group, I would consider any of them potentially. If I was running like a zero Primate team, except for probably Lucario, I probably wouldn't really consider that.
Explain Delayed.
Well, Delayed is interesting because it's kind of like that Hypno role, but with a bit more one-shot potential against something like Azuelas. I think Mandibuzz are still in a lot of trouble because you're not going to knock it out with just one close combat. But it's interesting. It has the mud. It's sort of like a way of sneaking a grass on without actually using a grass. And also, like we saw with a lot of the grasses, they were really weak to fighting. So you can add a Delayed in there with Leaf Blade for the mud guys. And then
and you've got Confusion for fighters.
And there's also Charm Blade.
Charm Blade. Yeah.
I think one of the things about the other Charmers, like the Bayartits and the Donphans,
who we'll get to, you know.
Everyone will see that coming from a mile away. But with the lady, I think you could actually catch someone off guard.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's not just when you catch someone off guard, but it's also a bit better because its charge moves, it's glassy, but its charge moves are actually pretty decent, whereas the other Charmers are all, I think Chinchino has an equally fast move, but Aquatail is much weaker than Leaf Blade, and Donphan's slow, and Beartic and Lilligant, I don't even know what's going on with
Raichu.
Yeah, Raichu.
Oh yeah, Raichu's a bit faster. But then, yeah, I think Glade, if you wanted to run it with Charm, which is pretty questionable by itself, I think it is probably the strongest Charmer in the meta.
Yeah.
I'm back then. Sorry about that. My laptop died just as I was getting ready to plug the cord in. I think I left the Zoom call probably. It was such unfortunate timing.
Oh well.
So good. Am I still not? I need to stretch this out to catch you again. How do I do that? Oh, how do I do that? I need to go back to this. Just a little 9, maybe. There we go. I just need to go back to show grid view.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay. Chestnut.
Interesting. I think Chestnut. It's because it's again, you're trying to find ways of slipping like a grass in there, and typically like the advantages would be like in situations where like a lot of the grasses, it's like the grass is pretty risky because of the Zweilous matchup, for example. But kind of Chestnut, like, so it can kind of flip certain things. I probably wouldn't bring Chestnut, but I can kind of see the advantage to why someone might consider it.
It definitely fills a very unique role that, despite being a grass, it can beat some of those dragons, particularly Zweilous with the superpower, as well as threaten a lot of things that would otherwise counter it. But you're just going to get farmed down by things like Mantine and Pelliper being double to that flying. Although in terms of flyers, like Dragonite, Mantine, Pelliper probably being the 3 most common ones. It's not the worst like hard counters really, because Dragonite doesn't really utilize its flying typing, and Mantine and Pelliper both have neutral grass matchups instead of taking resisted. So I think there's definitely a place for it. Maybe not a big one, but it could definitely fill a niche role on the team.
Yeah,
and it does learn Smackdown as a fast one. So
I did not know
you get counterplay against the Flyers. We were talking about how good Rock is. So Smackdown Chestnut.
I'm remarkably intrigued.
Yeah, it would transform your Chestnut into a surprise Frostlass counter, maybe.
Yeah,
like,
actually, yeah.
You'd still be taking a lot of damage though.
Oh, you'd take a ton of damage, but it would be interesting because you probably would have a Frostlass swap into you before they realize that you're running a smash. It's one of those things that would work for a game, but you should never use it again after that point instead of 3.
You'd hope that they then like kind of try and hard counter you, like, oh heck, I'm not making that mistake again.
Yeah. I actually think in this meta I probably would run it with Smackdown if I was even done it right.
Smackdown? Oh my god.
I think I would, because that would be the only. I don't see any much significantly huge play with it otherwise, and I'm not sure exactly what it does. It's just interesting. It's an interesting mon.
I mean, 5 minutes ago, I've been like, there is no chance I'm reading Chestnut, but now I'm like, Smackdown.
Steve just wants a good YouTube video.
I need the clickbait, man. Like smacking down the meta with Chestnut.
Well, if you think about it, with Smackdown, the things that normally you don't want to face would be like the ground types. But if you were to like use it as like a quote unquote a tricky safe switch, where like you switched it in and you're kind of playing on fast reaction times, like you can probably get the thing that you wanted to get and actually like win the matchup. You'd have to look up if you beat Frostlass, that one's a bit debatable. But I think you're doing 4 damage per turn to like 2.5 plus same type attack bonus, so it would be close.
Okay. Now, wildcard picks. Obviously, we have Mew here, and Mew. We thought we might have had another chance to get a Great League Mew from the research, but that hasn't quite come to fruition yet, and we don't know if we're going to be able to get that done before the cup is through.
Probably not.
Probably not. But for all the people that do have Mew, is it like that good, or is it just a bit of a sort of surprise pick kind of deal?
Solid.
I think it definitely has a lot of merit. There was a lot of debate on what the right moveset was.
Moveset.
I know Endun was talking like Dragon Claw. Well, she was running some weird moveset. Dragon Claws, Surf, maybe something. I don't know. But there's definitely a lot of different targets for movesets. I think there's definitely not one moveset that I can confidently say like rises above the others.
I think it fills a little bit of the anti-fighting role like Hypno does, but it's a little more flexible because you can run maybe like a Dragon Claw for the Swilus or a Wild Charge for the Mandibuzz or something.
Or you can completely surprise everybody and run Volt Switch, I think. I think Volt Switch is an option. You could probably beat Mandibuzz with it.
You could. I just don't like the fact that Volt Switch is resisted by Dragon Ground.
I know, yeah.
I think if you want to run Electric on Mew, you just go Wild Charge. I think that's the reason we don't see much Volt Switch Mew, just because Wild Charge is so good.
I think we don't see it because Shadow Claw is just such a good move, and like I don't think people are really TMing their Mew every time. They're just like, I'm just Shadow Claw, it's solid, it works really well. Like I'm waiting to get my Mew from the research, from my research staff. And like I have 113 fast TMs saved up. I'm just like I'm not throwing away fast TMs until I get Shadow Claw on my Mew.
Oh, it's gonna eat a lot. But it's not gonna be a fun time. Trash Wormadam.
It's interesting. It's an alternate way you can try to counter Frostlass. As you'll see in the Frostlass safe switch thing when we get there, like it's actually not as solid as you would expect in that matchup. Like it's not as a sure thing, but it's still pretty good.
Yeah, I mean the thing you do have going for you is you are resisting Dragon. You have Confusion for the Primate.
And you're not taking super effective from Night Slash.
Right, and you have Bug Buzz for like the darts.
Yeah.
Mandibuzz say back on Wireless and even Mandibuzz a bit.
Yeah, Mandibuzz is a bit rough though because Bug Buzz is only neutral.
Nope.
I looked a little bit into Bug Bite Worm Tea just for that that Mandibuzz help, but I don't think it's worth it overall. You really start losing those fighter matchups because you're doing neutral while they're doing, or you're doing resisted while they're doing neutral, and you can just get kind of overrun by them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I suppose would Bug Bite be quite a hard Xylus counter?
Yeah.
Change Xylus.
Yeah,
you get worse against Frostlass though too.
It was already pretty decent against Wireless though. That's the thing. Like
yes,
I know
it's kind of a mixed matchup with Confusion, whereas with Bug Bite I would have thought it's a fairly consistent win for Whatnot.
I guess it's a bit of how quick you get to Bug Buzzes.
Mm-hmm. I think losing the Primate ability would be a bit rough.
Mm.
You're also Bug Bite's also resisted by Frostlass, so you're now relying on your Iron. Is it Heavy Slime or Iron Head? I always forget what Iron Head. So you're relying on your Iron Heads at this point to take it out.
Confusion's slightly better than Bug Buzz in neutral. It doesn't get stabbed, whereas Bug Bite does. But it's because it's a higher damage per turn move. I think stab Bug Bite is 3.6 damage per turn, and Confusion's 4 damage per turn. So even in neutral, it's slightly better.
Mm-hmm. Unless you're like really going to struggle with Mandibuzz in your team, I don't think it's worth it. You lose your neutral on Frostlass, you lose your super effective on fighters, you lose your neutral on things like Mandibuzz, or not Mandibuzz, sorry, Ninetales, Crustle, the Mud Boys. Yeah, it's probably not the move, but it's an interesting consideration for the right team.
Mm-hmm.
And what about
also the waters?
Berserker and Gyarados. Is anyone going to make a case?
I tried
so
for
Berserker's interesting because it's
really
a bit like Melmetal. Yeah, it is. It is a bit glassy. It's kind of similar to Melmetal, slightly more glassy. It has a better fast move, and its charge moves are maybe slightly better. Close combat you can actually back to back, whereas Superpower you get debuffed after the first one. So I think there's a case for it over Melmetal in a neutral matchup, but the thing is, Melmetal has Rock Slide, and Rock Slide is really relevant. So I think that's why we're not really seeing Berserker in the way we're seeing Melmetal.
Yeah, and also Foul Play doesn't help you as much.
Yeah, I was gonna say also the Berserker is a lot worse for the Mandibuzz matchup. Like it's not a really tough Mandibuzz. That's done where we're definitely did a little bit more with Melmetal, but I think I do think it has a better moves. Sort of like I like Shadow Claw a lot better, but I think this meta kind of sets up for Shadow Claw to be in a bit of a tougher spot. Like pretty
Foul
much.
Play just struggles a little bit with the Dark Types here, I think.
Yeah, exactly. You're relying too much on close combat, and Mandibuzz can take one close combat, like no problem. It's like cool.
Yeah, the flying typing just adds to the bulk that it's already packing.
Yeah, and then Gyarados is interesting because it kind of fills a similar niche to Pelliper and Mantine, but it doesn't quite do it in the same way because it's kind of like another Dragon Breather.
Yeah,
because you're probably running with Dragon Breath. I don't think there's much advantage to running a Waterfall Gyarados.
Bite Gyarados.
Bite Gyarados.
No, please don't do that.
If that Frost lasts. But yeah, no, I think you did. It's an interesting one. I think it's definitely worth considering. The only disadvantage compared to a lot of the other ones is just a bit slower. I always have found Gyarados to be a tad slow, even with Aqua Tail now. Like it's still just a slight step behind some of the other like water flyings. Like Pelipper's hitting weather balls a bit faster than you're getting to Aqua Tails, and those weather balls are also hitting harder. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it just falls behind Pelipper and Mantine. And as in terms of Dragon Breath, you just fall behind the dragons. You beat the dragons, but in other matchups, you'll fall behind them. Yeah, so it's sort of a specialized like combination of roles if you're looking for something to beat the dragons, but kind of still fill Pelipper and Mantine's niche, because like sometimes you need that cover that Pelipper and Mantine give you. But it's also not a sure thing to beat Primate. That's the thing.
Yeah,
that's why it's not considered as high. Like, if it beat Primate, you probably would see more Gyarados. But the fact that it's not a sure thing to beat Primate, like one close combat, and that's the end of Gyarados.
So I think it's a bit of a... Obviously, it could fit onto some team as the 6th pick really well.
Yeah.
But it's really just not something that's doing good enough that you need it.
Yeah, you won't... Right team will be the right Pokemon, but like there's going to be a lot of people that are just like... That's the reason you're not seeing a huge amount of it so far.
Yeah. Okay.
So the one thing that we kind of skipped is the water ices.
That's actually very true.
And that's also one of my favorite talking points, because I built the Shadow Sealeo. And it's
a weird role. I think Dewgong is probably, in my opinion, the most consistent of them. Like which doesn't necessarily mean it's better or worse, but it's just consistent. Because it has that constant ice output damage. Whereas with Lapras, there are some scenarios where you can lose this wireless because your surfs aren't doing enough. And same thing with, I think Mandibuzz, there's actually scenarios where you can lose as well just because those surfs don't do enough super effective damage.
Right. Sealeo has the problem of a bad Frostlass matchup.
It's sort of, I would say, the worst Frostlass matchup, but I think Dewgong also has the same problem.
Dewgong can win 1 and 2 shield matchups going straight icy wins.
And Shadow Sealeo can beat Frostlass as well.
Sealeo has bait dependent wins.
Straight body slam though, or straight what? Where's a bait?
You have to bait and land the waterfall.
Yeah. Like Dewgong beats Frostlass in the 2 shield with straight icy wind, so that's kind of cool. But also, who's shielding a Dewgong with their Frostlass? It's a walking shield disadvantage waiting to happen.
Right, but you can also win the 1 shield straight icy wind as well.
I don't think so. Can you?
Yeah, I
don't
believe
think you can. I think you just.
I remember that matchup from Marsh Cup. I'm pretty sure you win it straight icy wins.
To the Sims.
Da, da, da.
Yeah.
Once we
No,
get there.
I think if I looked at my Frostlass, when I did the research for that one, I was always finding that Frostlass was safe in the 1 shield and safe in the 2 shield, just straight Shadow Ball.
I'm saying if Frostlass doesn't bait, then Dewgong.
Yeah, if you go straight icy win and they go straight Shadow Ball, you do actually win.
Yeah, but check
only
the
if Frostlass doesn't bait.
But if they do bait, then it's
yeah, but check the, yeah, but you have to check the IVs. I think this is a poor version of Frostlass.
Yeah, Frostlass
right.
can hit a defensive breakpoint that will actually allow it to take 1 less damage from the ice shards, in which case it'll flip the matchup.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So it's
another
IV dependent
IV
for
thing.
Frostlass.
Mm-hmm.
You need to hit 112.65 defense. The default on PV Poke is around 109, and then a rank 1 is around 117. So, like your upper half of Frostlass should do it, and I think the majority of people will have in the upper 2,000 ranks of Frostlass.
Mm-hmm. That might be one worth sort of bringing up to sort of play and put a custom IV in for the default, because the default Frostlass is sort of a bit of an underseller, because I think it's an 8/6/15, so it's this really low defense version. And like even like like most of them won't necessarily be maximum, but even something like that, you're going to be able to pretty comfortably take the 1 shield. I don't even think you necessarily need the bulk point. I think just having a bit extra health gives it to you pretty safe. And I don't even think you need to bait. It's just like straight Shadow Ball.
I mean, 4 turns, that's enough to get you an extra 20 energy.
Yeah.
Which is like Avalanche 45, Shadow Ball 55. You've got enough to get from the Avalanche to the Shadow Ball.
Mm-hmm. So I think that there might be some high attack versions of Dewgong that can win it, but most people elite TM a good version of Dewgong.
Yeah, I did not
hit the break point no matter the bulk point no matter what. I don't think it's dependent on Dewgong.
No, actually, if I look down at it said at the bottom,
there was a
Dewgong, it's an attack to guarantee. So there was a Dewgong Ice Shard. They can get it if they have this much attack. Yeah, but if you scroll up to the IVs to get that are like 13, 7, 13.
Yeah, which I actually feel like my Dewgong might be trash enough that it actually would hit that.
Yeah, because the people that traded for a Dewgong before elite teams were a thing might have those crappy Dewgongs.
Yeah, mine wasn't traded. I elite TM'd a bad IV one.
Yeah, I elite TM my shiny rank 57. I'm confident I had the first ever shiny double legacy Dewgong, because the shiny came out after the legacy moves went away, and then I TM'd mine like literally within like 3 seconds of the box. It had the first ever elite fast TM. I'm confident.
Another thing about Dewgong versus Frostlass worth noting is that, to be honest, it's probably a matchup that no one's ever done shield anyways. Like it's not really a shield matchup. So I mean, unless you're like at the very last moment of the match, like you get to the very closing moments, and you have Dewgong versus Frostlass, then you're gonna get to those extra shield scenarios. But for the most part, Frostlass isn't gonna shield anything. You're definitely gonna get Dewgong reasonably low. It's probably gonna set up a farm for something like a Primate, because you'll probably have Dewgong within farmable range if you don't even shield the things. So it's probably not a shield matchup.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, one quick question about this graphic in general. There's some different thickness lines. Are the really thick lines the entire group, and the kind of thin lines are single Pokemons?
Yeah, that's the difference.
Yeah, okay. Just checking on that one. Didn't kind of. I noticed, but I didn't actually think about it too hard until then. But one thing, the last thing on this graphic that we have not looked at is the trash can.
Yeah.
Take us through the trash can.
Okay.
We've got the fly in the trash. That's the first one.
Yeah, I saw Flygon was mentioned on a lot of early, like day 1, day 2 graphics for this meta as being like something worth bringing as like a safe swap. But the sims and the way it works just kind of don't support that. You lose really hard to a lot of very common things. Like Mandibuzz, you get walled, unless you want to get real spicy and run Stone Edge, which I think is probably the best for it here. Because of the presence of flying and other things.
Yeah, I think you need Stone Edge if you're running it.
But yeah,
I mean, we've gone over it
you're-
and get it again. Rock is good here. If it's got a
You're
rock,
you're double weak to ice, and you're also gonna struggle with Dragon Breath users because they're just chipping away at you with that Dragon Breath, and you're doing almost nothing with Mud Shot.
Yeah.
those things like Mantine and Pelliper that just resist the mud shots and then do very consistent water and other neutral damage output.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
can beat the rocks that will pop up on teams. Like Magnezone has no play.
yeah, but why just not use Whiscash? You know?
Yeah. No, I think that's a very good reason that Flygon just simply isn't worth it here. The other mud boys just far outshine it.
Why not just use Twastell is the main thing. Like Twastell is basically the same idea, but with less Dryden Claw, less Dryden weakness.
Yeah, the water grounds, you're trading something that's double weak to ice, and ice is really popular in this meta for something that's not weak to ice. I think that's quite a big upgrade.
Mhm. We also have a Steelix in the trash can, and this is just a tradition. Like Steelix is just
yeah.
it's just become garbage now.
I miss the days
You
when it
can
was
see why
good.
people might be thinking about it, because it resists dragon, and it has a super effective fast move on dragons. And
Yeah.
dragon with Fairy's Band, dragons are in a strong position in this meta. But
Doesn't
it's
live up
not
to
enough.
hype.
It's not enough.
It's just
It's-
walled by Mandibuzz.
I feel like Sinister Cup was the last time that Steelix got any love.
I know. I love Steelix. I really
I
want.
ran it in Toxic Cup. It had some play there
Oh, true.
Yeah.
against the Golbats and the Crustles.
Hmm. Yeah, if you're listening, Niantic, we really want some help before Steelix.
Yeah, give it a better fast move. I don't know what it
Mm,
even can learn, but it needs some better than Dragon Tail or
Mud Shot
Thunder.
Steelix.
Starfire until maybe.
I think Fire Fan is probably the best you can do for it. It would make it solid.
It's Smackdown. That'd be interesting. If it's typing.
Smackdown.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I mean, it gets
Hexagon
all the
too.
fangs. It gets Dragon Breath. Oh no, that would have been way better. And then let's
Yeah, that
see
would
here.
be
What
good.
else?
Steel type with Dragon Breath.
Could get Rock Slide, which would be nice. It gets Body Slam.
Iron Tail.
Doesn't it get like Drill Run?
Yeah, just Drill Run, which would make it a bit more
I think
fast.
Yeah.
Rockslide Drill Run would make it like a faster version of
Yeah.
G-Fisk.
I think
It'd be-
Dragon Breath would be very interesting on it.
Yeah, it'd be kind of funny if it's just like, you're not the only one who can do this G-Fist.
It would really need like Mud Shot or something to really speed it up though.
Yeah, it can't learn
Yeah.
that. Also, I'm a fan of Mudshot Steelix. It doesn't feel right. Steelix feels like this big, slow, lumbering behemoth.
I definitely agree with that. Yeah, I couldn't see its animation because like its animation is so like it completes like it goes the whole way down, and I don't think that it would look right. Just like
Yeah.
doing
It's
like
like
a
water-
crazy motion.
Have you ever done water done slow, bro? Because that's like, it does the...
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't quite get there.
It's like, it doesn't look like it's hitting you that fast, but it is.
Yeah, sometimes it just doesn't move at all.
Yeah. Some Pokemon like Steelix and Bastion are like, they should have moves that are kind of slow and powerful and lumbering, and like kind of fits their personality a bit.
We demand more personality moves in Pokemons.
But I do think something like Dragon Breath would be interesting. But I'm a booster of Fire Fan. I think that would be interesting because the thing that really sucks about Steelix is that you can't really, you just lose, other than like to the Bastiodons and stuff, you just lose to a lot of the other like rock types.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe with Shura. But the Charmers, we you know, we've kind of hit it here or there when there's other Charmers that are a bit more useful. Is there reason to bring Charmers in this cup?
I mean, if someone's loading up a team with like Primates, Wireless, Mandibuzz, and
Dragonair.
Dragonair or something,
Probably not.
like the Charmers just aren't that good here. But again, if someone's like loading up their team weak to charm, where they have like a fighter, 2 dragons, 2 darks, and a dragon or something like that, like maybe there's some play if the meta goes that way, just to keep that in check. But they're just.
I think the biggest weakness of the Charmers is that they don't actually beat Mandibuzz in the 0 shield scenario.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I think one thing you got to bear in mind about these Charmers is, unlike normal Charmers, they don't have fairy type resistances. Well, there's that as well, but they don't have fairy resistances. They don't resist dark. They don't resist dragon. So like there was one of them. I can't remember. One of them taking the 0 shield sim, and Kingdra just straight up won it against the Charmer because it just grinds it down with Dragon Breath and then kills it.
Oh, damn.
So they don't perform like you expect Charmers to against Dragon and Dark Pokemon.
Yeah. I think if you run one, you definitely want to run Lilligant, because if you're going to run a Charmer, you might as well pick the one with the longest to reach charge move just to go for the full, like, easiest possible factor.
Wait, what charge move does it have?
I think I looked it up. I think Petal Blizzard is its lowest at 65 energy.
Oh my god!
I think you can run Hyper Beam.
Okay, because
someone lands a Hyper Beam with a charm. What, Lilligant?
Raichu is an option.
I think Delayed and Raichu are probably your 2 best, just because they could catch someone off guard that might not be expecting it, because they have like realistic moves.
I think Raichu, most people would be expecting Charm. Gallade, though, is definitely you would expect Confusion.
I would expect Loki, but that's just me.
To be honest, I would consider almost the opposite. I would consider running Volt Switch Raichu to attach the people who are like, haha, they have a Charmer on their team off guard.
The thing is as well.
Yeah. While we're talking about movesets, I think there's a couple other mods worth mentioning, right? With some variable movesets here. Like
I think
for example.
Yeah, Primape's worth I think the ones I would identify as worth sort of discussing would be Mandibuzz. We already talked about Hypno, Mandibuzz, Primeape, Sealeo, because I think some people might consider Aurora Beam, but I really feel like Water Pulse is what you want.
I think just for Frostlass, I think you want Water Pulse.
Yeah, I think there's Steel types. Yeah, like I think the advantage you get from Aurora Beam on things like Mandibuzz, like you actually can kind of just get that advantage if you just run Shadow Sealeo.
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate because you really have to pick like what you're trading off. There's no like no matter what you pick, you're winning some and you're losing some. So it's I think it's one of those team comp things.
Yeah, I was noticing when I was sort of working on the write-up, which is coming for the Vortex stuff, and I was talking about, like, well, Sealeo can sometimes drop Mandibuzz because his Body Slam isn't really enough if you don't have Aurora Beam. But then I was looking at, well, you know what, can shore that up, Shadow Sealeo. So just run the Shadow Sealeo if you're going to do it. I don't think Sealeo is really worth it without anyways.
Danjon's just trying to convince himself that all the dust he spent was worth it.
I've been using the GBL. It's totally worth it. Shit, I've did solid probably at least 5,000 or 6,000 right now. I just finished building my Shadow Ninetales, so
Ted should go for the all Shadow lineup.
It's
Shadow Ninetales, Shadow Sealeo, surely Shadow Hypno.
It's definitely not viable.
You have to miss out on.
I was gonna say, the other interesting thing is I only have 4 Shadow Pokemon total now, and 3 of them are eligible for the meta.
I think if you were going all Shadow team, you would go with you would go with either Sealeo or Lapras. Then you'd run a Hypno, you'd run a Dragonair, a Ninetales, a Quagsire.
Did someone try Blossom? It didn't go very well.
A Probopass, something like that.
That does miss out on a fighter though, which is a little.
There's a lot of people on this draft pick. There's a lot of
Hitmonchan.
Yeah, Hitmonchan. I was gonna say, but there's a lot of things in the future. You're just looking at that going, well, what about Shadow Crustle in the future? Shadow Galvantula or Shadow
Shadow Galvantula.
One thing that will be interesting from a Shadow, not as the Shadow, but once Seal comes to Rockets, we'll be able to give it return. And the problem with Dewgong is it has a really bad matchup against the other Water Ices because it's Wolf. I think return.
You can't elite on that either, can you?
Against Lapras.
No, so you would actually have to build a new one.
Oh no! I just realized that that's true, and you'll have to do it.
Yeah.
The only
it'll
problem
be
with
really
that
good.
is then your Alolan Marowak matchup's going to
Yeah,
get worse.
sure,
Not on this
sure.
cup, but
It's
You
true.
can icy wind down Alolan Marowak and still get somewhere because it debuffs it, and it's not like Warthog is helpful coverage, but if you just straight icy wind it, it's not terrible. You do sort of leave it in an annoying position.
Yeah. The good news is
so
that
Primate moveset, Night Slash probably seems like a must because of Frostlass.
Yep.
Yeah, you need Night Slash, and then the second move is pretty debatable. There's 3 options, and I think 2 of them are good.
Yeah, you can actually even beat Mandibuzz with close combat in some scenarios. You don't even need the Ice Punch there.
I was going to say Ice Punch is probably the bad one. I think you get more with close combat or cross chop.
Yeah, I think Ice Punch does seem appealing because there is a couple of flyers and some dragons, but I think it's just not quite as good as the fighting moves. Close combat just nukes things.
Which is always nice to lead.
It gives you that heavy closing power and can just one-shot a lot of things if you land it. Cross chop comes out quicker and you don't have to worry about debuffing yourself. So like cross chop is going to be more reliable with shields up against like the water ices, for example. Yeah. Because I think those get a little dicey with close combat depending when you debuff yourself. And then you're taking like surfs or body slams or icy winds or whatever.
Against the water ices, you're probably just going to use Night Slash and you're just going to farm down. Like you're probably going to have to invest a shield into the matchup. But if you have a decent IV Primate, I think you can definitely take a surf, but not 2. But
Primate pretty much can't take 2 of anything.
Yeah, Primate can barely take 1 of anything. But I think if you have a decent IV Primate, you can take 1 surf. It's a bit sketchy. I know the default sim version of Primate definitely doesn't take that surf very well. But I think sort of a more middle IV solid, like maybe a 5-15-15 Primate type is going to hold up a little bit safer. But yeah, if you run cross chop, like you shore that matchup so much nicer. So it's definitely a good option for that. Mm-hmm. I mean, one thing close combat gives you though.
Karate chop Primate.
Karate. I consider it, but not very long. One other thing, time is just so powerful. One other thing you can get with close combat is you can beat Toxicroak with it.
Yeah, if you bait the Night Slash and then the close combat, you can flip that matchup. And then I think one other thing that close combat gets you that maybe the Sims won't show, if you like farm something down, you can have a lot bigger threat with loaded energy than you would with the smaller moves like Night Slash or Cross Chop. They're both good moves, but you won't have that same threatening power that a close combat can bring you after a farm down.
Mm-hmm. Especially like if you're running things like Ninetales and like stuff like that on your team, where it's just like if you're running Overheat Ninetales and close combat Primate, it's just eventually they don't have enough shields for all this stuff.
The question is, will you have enough shields?
Yeah,
it's true.
They just have to play like a Galvantula and dot.
Yeah, that's where like if you're running the Mandibuzz, it can really help. The Mandibuzz is just a sponge.
Yeah,
I think there's one matchup I was playing where I realized that I could just run Mandibuzz and I could just like not shield, and I would either kill something or take a shield advantage, and then like Frostlass would come in with the shield advantage. It's just like this match is over.
Yeah, I think the one other place that I think cross chop could be nice is I haven't actually looked at the sim, but I'm assuming for Zweilous, just because Night Slash is doing nothing.
Yeah, it's more safe. It's that's why the arrow's dotted between Primate and Zweilous, is because in the zero shield actually Primate can potentially lose. But I also think so cross chop would be better for sure. I do think this sort of a farm down situation though, or you're just gonna invest 1 shield and just counter down.
Yeah, I think like cross chop is going to be more consistent and reliable, but close combat just has that bigger threat. And like tangents, if you can farm something down and come out with a bunch of energy, you'd rather have that close combat because that's going to either force shields or nuke the hell out of whatever's coming in next.
Yeah. I think, yeah, both are good, but that would be, I would run close combat, but I can definitely see the appeal to cross drop.
Sorry to all you. What about Weatherball Primate?
Yeah, I mean, that Ninetales matchup is nice, and you can win Diggersby a little harder.
And it's higher DPE than Night Slash. It's a pretty good primary move.
Well, I'm pretty excited for Weatherball Fire coming like mid-season 7.
Well, I was thinking Weatherball Ice.
It could be Ice, but
It's got Ice Punch. It needs the fire coverage.
well,
Isn't there a Weatherball Rock? We were saying how good
I don't
Rock
think
is.
so.
Isn't there a Weatherball? Not in the game, but in the mainstream games.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah, Weatherball Rock's it's actually in the code. It exists. It's just they haven't given it.
Right.
So Primate will be the first accident.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I guess the other question is Mandiba's moveset.
Yeah.
I would. There's some value or some. Can't think of the word I'm trying. There's like an argument for Air Slash certainly, but I do think that was probably going to be your often selected choice. Stronger against Frostlass, Hypno. Yeah, I think it just gives you more play. The charge moves are what are really going to flip the matchups more so than the fast.
Yeah, I think Mandibuzz with Air Slash is a very specified anti-fighter, but you do drop a lot of your other sort of matchups. If you're running Air Slash Mandibuzz, it's for a very specific purpose, to switch it in on fighting types, or to
win the mirror.
Or to win the mirror. Yeah, that's true. It would definitely, and it's definitely a lot better against the Dryden. So I do think it gives you some upside. But if you are seeing like Frostlass like a lot, like it's gonna, that's gonna be the one matchup you're really gonna wish you had Snarl for, because Frostlass is just fast, and like now you can just let Frostlass just like take you out. So it's pros and cons. I can see the argument.
If you have both Air Slash and Dark Pulse as the most alternative Mandibuzz, you do win the Zero Shield scenario with Frostlass.
It's true. I was also gonna say the very off meta Air Slash / Shadow Ball Mandibuzz. Slow.
I think Shadow Ball. There's just no play for it here.
Fairies are banned. That's like the only advantage of Shadow Ball is fairy Pokemon, and they're banned. So.
Yeah, exactly. And there's obviously none of those here. For example, if you're dropping Aerial Ace or Shadow Ball, then you're going to lose your super effective on fighters, which is important because Mandibuzz would probably actually lose some of the fighters without that. And then if you drop like
Dark Pulse,
there's really no reason to drop Foul Play for it because you're already hitting super effective on Frostlass, and there's nothing that resists Dark in this meta that you can't hit for neutral with Aerial Ace, which I'm sure there's one Pokemon that would prove me wrong, but I can't think of what it would be off the top of my head.
You have, because Dark's its primary move, it's Dark Charge move, its primary moves. You have three types that resist Dark. They're Dark, Fighting, and Fairy. In the Dark Mirrors, Shadow Ball doesn't help you because it's also resisted. Against Fighting types, Shadow Ball doesn't help you because Aerial Ace is super effective. So the only type matchup where Shadow Ball gives you higher DP than its other moves is Fairies, and they're banned. So.
It's literally non-existent in this card.
Yeah.
So there's just not much case for Shadow Ball.
Yeah, the only advantage to Shadow Ball is I think it barely does. It barely does more damage to Frostlass. So if you were to land it on Frostlass, you might be able to kill a Frostlass a little bit faster before it could get to its next Avalanche. But I think overall, that's like Dark Pulse is only like 4 damage less. So I don't think it's worth it. But like I think the really
think Dark Pulse over Foul Play or Foul Play?
No, actually, I think in general, Mandibuzz is a great candidate for Dark Pulse. I think it's a Pokemon that really does well with the Dark Pulse, and there are some matchups that help you here. I just think Frostlass is so common that I almost don't want to give up that speed you get with Foul Play.
Yeah,
because it just makes the Frostlass matchup just like you're teetering towards the point where it can just outspeed you, get to that Avalanche that takes you up before you have a chance to hit it with a charge move. And I think losing that is too much. Mm-hmm.
But with the Air Slash Zero Shield sim, Foul Play doesn't do enough damage. You need the power.
It's true.
The power of Dark Pulse.
Well, I think actually, if you were running Air Slash, you might consider Air Slash Foul Play Dark Pulse, because what do you really need flying damage for at that point? I just said
it's
that's
wireless.
terrible. Yeah, I was gonna say actually
I think
that's
also having the cheaper move would be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Well, I
comparing
mean,
Mandibuzz with
running
Umbreon is
like,
kind of
you know,
interesting because if you can have Foul Play and Dark Pulse and Umbreon, but if you choose Dark Pulse, you lose your fastest move, which can cost you charge move races and that sort of thing. But with Mandibuzz, because Aerial Ace is faster than Last Resort, has the same energy cost as Foul Play. I think Mandibuzz is slightly more viable with Dark Pulse than Umbreon is because you don't necessarily lose your fastest move if you have Dark Pulse.
Yeah, I agree. Although I'm a huge fan of Dark Pulse Umbreon. Like I think it's really I really like to actually run that set most of the time when I'm running it in Go Battle League.
Yeah, I've actually been doing the same.
Yeah, it has a really nice G-Fist matchup. So you can catch them off guard a little bit. But for Mandibuzz, I think again I really like Dark Pulse. I think I would probably consider it a lot in this meta if it wasn't for Frostlass. I think Frostlass is the only thing that's kept me from TMing mine to Dark Pulse and just going with my Foul Play that I've been running for a while.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And then someone was asking why Shadow Hitmonchan is not on the graphic.
It could have
because
probably
Primeape is better.
Yeah, I was gonna say Primeape is just generally better. Like it's the same idea as Primeape. It's counter user with some interesting charge move options, but it's one step slower than Primeape. And unlike Toxicroak has the fighting resistance, which kind of allows it to stay out from a crowd.
Right, but what about down in that alternative fighters?
Other fighters.
Why
think
is
specifically with
Lucario
this
there
graphic,
over Shadow Hitmonchan?
I think with this graphic, if you look, every single fighter on it, Primeape, Toxicroak, Lucario, Gallade, Blaziken, and Chesnaught, all have a unique and different role. Whereas Hitmonchan really doesn't do too much that Primeape won't do.
Yeah.
Sure, you get the ice for the dragons, but Primeape also has the ice, the Thunder Punch for the water ices, but you're going to beat those almost regardless anyway. So in order for us to put another fighter on this graphic, for example, like Hitmonchan is another one that like could potentially be on here, but they just don't really do that much that Primeape can't, whereas all of the other fighters listed have unique roles and unique matchups.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It's like Lucario is not my favorite Pokemon, and I'm definitely not planning on running it, but I can see where it might slide in because you might need this, and this, and it's the perfect thing to fill that role.
But is Lucario better than a Scavalier?
I'm not sure.
That's an interesting one, the Scavalier.
The Scavalier's got to be better, surely. Lucario is just way too squishy for like anything.
I think it's probably a consideration.
Yeah.
But
yeah, exactly. We haven't really posted the official version, and Lucario is the one we were kind of talking about. Is like, do we keep Lucario?
Yeah, it's like this. It's like
I was arguing to put it in the trash can, but
yeah, I was gonna say if the final version doesn't have Lucario in that fighting spot, it will be in the trash can.
Yeah, by the way, actually,
is Talonflame. I know we kind of forgot about it.
Yeah.
Where do you guys think does it fit in this meta?
I would probably put in the wild cards personally.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty good though. I think it's interesting. Actually, considering the fact that you get a fire type that resists counter, it also gives you a fire type that is not super effective. That is neutral to Frostlass. So that's a disadvantage, although I mean it's still pretty good in the Frostlass match.
And weak to Galvantula.
And weak to Galvantula as well. So there's trade-offs.
Double weak to Rock, the recurring type in this.
Yeah, it's a very unique Pokemon that can be hard to find its niche, but I think it definitely has one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Incinerate is a great fast move. It does have the better fast move compared to Ninetales.
Yeah, it would fit with the wild card.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure.
I think it would definitely go on wild card.
There'll be plenty of experimentation with Talonflame in the coming days.
Yeah.
I know I woke up this morning to, all of the Go Battle League YouTubers with their Talonflame videos all right next to each other. And I think I saw Matthew Brewer had a Sylph Vortex Cup video with Talonflame that was in the thumbnail. Haven't got a chance to watch that yet, so I don't know what's going on in there. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting one, I think.
Yeah.
For sure.
Definitely. It's just another reason to run Crustle.
One other question for you guys. Do you guys prefer Mandibuzz, Wireless, both, or neither in this meta?
I think you pick one. Just because Primeape is so prevalent, and there's a lot of, they have very similar like they do very different things, but I think that dark typing is still, you don't want to stack too many things that are weak to the same, because that's very easy to do in this cup. Particularly, I found with fighting and with rock. There's a lot of those that you can stack up that'll end up being weak to those without you really noticing. So you kind of got to be really careful with that.
So if you're only picking one, which one are you picking?
I think it's one of those team comp things. Although I certainly think that you can start with them in your core, and decide there.
Sure, but which personally do you prefer? Is what I'm trying to get at. Given
I have Mandibuzz on my team because it fits better with my little ABB strategy, so it's not weak to fighting. Because the rest of my team is very weak to fighting, and so were I to take Zweilous, it would not end up well for me. Should I run into like a Primate or another fighter?
I think there's a lot of glass cannons that I love in this cup. So there's like Primate and there's like Frostlass, who's medium tanky. So like there's a lot of things that are sort of frail. So it's just nice to have this sponge that literally just soaks damage and doesn't really need to use a shield.
I mean, that's why I'm thinking I'm on Team Mandibuzz as well, just for the fact that, you know, you get to add an extra shield on your team just for free, just by virtue of bringing this one Pokemon.
Yeah, I'd rather with Dewgong. It pretty much is safe against just about everything in this meta. Like it can actually beat Zweilous in the Zero Shield, which is pretty surprising considering the fact that it's only taking neutral damage and only doing Aerial, Ace plus Snarl. It's still enough to potentially win the Zero Shield.
Could you run both of them in Air Slash on Mandibuzz, or do you guys think that's still a bad idea?
I definitely think that's not invalid. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's viable.
It's not my play style. It's just not the way I plan on running Mandibuzz, but I can see it working. Like I was kind of joking at one point that like it was not a good idea because of the amount of things you drop, but I think I can see the benefit to it.
Yeah, I would probably only run Air Slash Mandibuzz if I was going to double up on the darks there.
Yeah, I personally would rather just run like Wing Attack Mantine, if using something to run sort of flying type offense.
Yeah, very true.
That's true.
And we're actually coming up on like the end of our time here, and we've been going through this one graphic at the same time. So if after this live stream, you, the audience, want to check out stadiumgaming.gg, they've got a bunch of other stuff like the Frostlass Safe Switch Guide put together by Tangent Nesabethan here. It's got some really great stuff about, I mean, everyone knows that Frostlass is always going to be a great safe swap in any meta that's available, just because Frostlass with energy, we're all very aware that it can be super deadly. So it has all of the stuff here about what the kind of stuff you're beating in all the even shields and stuff. Type of deal. Lots of info here that you can check out. There's also this Vortex Cup early team building guide, which actually, quick question. Do you think, now that it's a little bit later in the month, that this team building guide is still like mwah, chef's kiss? Or is there a change you would make?
I think it's held up all right.
But yeah, I think it fits most of it. If you look at it, one of the key things about it is it's just saying that first you need to make sure you have something that can beat Frostlass and Galvantula. So like that's pretty solid. You don't really want to run a team that doesn't have an answer to that. You need to have something that beats fighters. Like again, that's really solid. You're talking about the two most used Pokemon in the meta. Most of the rest of it is just like, run a fighter. Like you don't have to run a fighter. That's probably the one thing that you can probably get away from. But I mean, at the end of the day, Primate is like the best Pokemon in the meta currently.
Definitely the king of the meta, yeah.
The king of the meta. So it's just like, you can probably run a team without it. But I think in terms of a team guide, just like keep it simple, run Primate or something, run something with similar coverage. Almost everything else is like, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, you can make a pretty balanced team just by following this. Like, there's going to be people that have teams that don't fit this exact mold, sure. But the idea here is just an easy guide for people that don't really know where to start with team building, or, team building isn't their strong suit. If you kind of, follow this guide and also, maybe use the PV Poke team builder while you're doing it, you can end up with a pretty balanced team. But yeah, I would recommend, using PV Poke Team Builder while you're going through these categories, because it's possible that if you just randomly pick one from each category, you could end up overly weak to something. But this is just a good general thing, like Tangent said, having that something that beats Frostlass and Galvantula is really important. Having that anti-fighter is really important. And then Mandibuzz and Wireless are also quite strong, so have something that can beat or at least soft counter them is important too. Primeape's really good. And then after that, you're left with a Generalist and a Flex where you can really do whatever you want. That's where you can pick up your Mandibuzz, your Wireless, your Galvantula, your Whiscash, Diggersby, whatever else might be. So we tried to leave it fairly open-ended to cover a lot of different team comps while making sure you had the most important coverage. So I think it will fit most teams, but again, there's some people that will make a team that strays from this, and that's fine. They probably have a specific strategy, like, that double electric team we've got over here.
From Mr. Pooh.
I think on that guide, like, you have to be careful about what you select, because Twastell mentioned it as well, and I think it's very important to note that it's very easy to make all of your team weak to something without really thinking too heavily about it. Something that can sneak in, especially Rock is like the big one that I found, that a lot of the common meta picks are all weak to Rock. You look at some things like if you put Alolan Graveler in the team builder, it gives you like insane results. Or like some of the Smackdown users or the Rock Throw users, they can just give you some insane results against the top meta. And so if you're only building a team with those top meta picks, you can leave yourself weak to some of those fringe meta picks that will just destroy you and run through you.
Definitely. Like if you just like picked one from each category on a whim, just with what's pictured, like say you went Frostlass and a Fighter, then Galvantula, Ninetales, Pelliper, and then you went Mandibuzz. Like that's 5 of your 6 on your team weak to Rock, right?
Yeah,
so you have to be
literally, as soon as you mentioned it, Twastell, like before about you need to be checking as you go as well. I was like, I went through and like Mandibuzz, Pelliper, Ninetales, Frostlass, Blaziken, Dewgong.
Yeah.
Yep, all weak to Rock.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's very easy to overlook something.
Yeah, Blaziken isn't. Technically, it's neutral.
It's neutral, yeah.
True.
But what is neutral to a Blaziken? I mean,
basically super effective.
Might as well be super effective at that point.
Like
I've never checked the sim. But what's Blaziken versus Crustle like? Because it's actually neutral both ways, isn't it? So
yeah,
give me 50 minutes to be able to sim this, and
it's not neutral if Blaziken's running Stone Edge.
It's actually yeah.
I think I looked into I ran a team builder with all the different Blaziken movesets, and there's literally like no matchup differences in the sims, at least between any of them. So it's very much going to come down to those non-simmable scenarios where you're farming something down, and then like which nuke will be the most useful. But as far as your Blaziken moveset, I actually don't think it's very important here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it seems like it's just a case of Blaziken can get the 2 charge moves first, but if it's just a fast move race, Crustle is going to come out on top.
Yeah, and 2 shields, Crustle might win, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, the way I'm looking at this now, I think it's going to be 0 shield Crustle, 2 shield Crustle. Oh, actually, 0 shield is... Oh, right, because you have Stone Edge. So yeah, if you throw Stone Edge...
Yeah.
But like, if you just...
Even if you didn't have Stone Edge, Blastburn would probably win the 0 shields if I had to guess.
It's true, but I mean, for the most part, you're probably going to see them throw Blaze Tit first anyways.
Very true.
Unless, they're familiar with the sim and they go, we have to get the Stone Edge right now. Let's go.
Yeah. Well, that would be more like in a closing scenario when you both are completely out of your shields. But like in most normal scenarios, you probably would just take the Blaze Tit, get to your Rock Slide, which still shield, and then let it go.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that brings us to the end of our Vortex Cup discussion. I really appreciate you all being here. Real quick, 3 things on the agenda between now and clicking end stream. Thing number 1, tell us where to find you all. Thing number 2, tell us about Go Stadium, TCG, and Unite. And then 3, we're going to go raid. So don't go anywhere yet.
All right, I'll go first because I actually have to head out in a sec.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Twastell. And thanks for hosting, Steve. Thanks to everyone for joining. I'll catch you guys later.
See you, Twastell. Thanks for getting on, sharing your beautiful face with us all once again. as you said before, Twastell is the pretty face of Ghost Stadium. Only reason he's here. That's all.
Accurate. Can confirm. All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
And making sure that the Zoom thing still looks fine, and it does. But
going down in numbers is easier than going up.
Yeah. Nesabethan, where can we find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter. My username is the same everywhere. I suppose you can find me on Reddit as well. Yeah. You'll see me sometimes my name in the credits on these articles when they appear. Oh, sorry, the graphics even.
And the articles.
Yeah. If you're on the Ghost Stadium Discord server, which is, I think we mentioned before, but it's a good place to join the discussion. You'll sometimes see me in the discussion channels.
Yep, that link will be in the YouTube description if you want to go join the Ghost Stadium group there as well. Tangent.
All right. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Tangent444. You'll find me lurking around on the Ghost Stadium Discord. Lots of stuff going on in Ghost Stadium for you to check out, like lots of tournaments happening all the time, lots of discussion on the channel. So, if you're not in the Discord, get in the Discord. It's highly worth it. And yeah, I just will be expanding to like Unite and TC trading card games soon. And what was the other one? I think there's also be a stadium for like, what's it, competitive? I think
VCG?
Yeah, VCG.
Right, V. Yeah, them.
That one.
We know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, but thanks for coming on. RughPoo, where can we find you? Obviously, you're the man that we maybe have to splice the intro into the start of the video somehow, although we probably should have gotten out of the
don't worry about it.
So it's easier to crop in. But anyway.
No worries. That's my fault. I had some job stuff run over, unfortunately. But yeah, I use a different handle for Twitter and YouTube. I go by Pogo9volt, both on Twitter and YouTube. I should be making a new YouTube video sometime this week with that Focus Blast Gengar I've been having a lot of fun with. So,
dun. But yeah, seriously, thanks to you all for kind of coming on this journey. We have run over time, so I'll let everyone go here. Yeah, I hope that this was maybe a little bit useful, perhaps, and I'll catch everyone in the next one. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, especially that subscribe one, and I'll see you in the next one.